Go ahead, put it on real tight. Hope you brought your best tonight. They say they got the fireworks, yeah, they say they got the show. Here around the chutes, you're the best, so let's go.
This is Texas Toast. I'm your host, Miss Helen. Kick back and enjoy as we toast the best from Texas. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Texas Toast podcast. I'm Miss Helen, and so happy to welcome Jaret Ray Reddick to the podcast. Hello there, my friend. And we've been trying to get this planned, and here we are.
I know. Yeah, we met at the awards late last year, and everybody gets busy, and you've got an insane. I see all the guests that are coming on all the time, and I'm always like, one day I will be there, and here I am.
I know this is our time because I'm just so excited to talk about your country album and you've got radio releases out to Texas country, but the name of the album is Just Woke Up. But I want to talk to you about some other stuff that I think is so cool because you do so many things. You are so talented. You're a voice actor. You're a podcaster, but I want to talk about your voice acting a little bit.
Yeah. Well, to lead in, I was a theater kid. And so really growing up, I really didn't have aspirations to be a musician. I really, I played in bands, but it was either really acting or being a stand-up comedian or, it just sort of worked out this way that I got to be, in Bowling for Soup, which I'm sure you'll ask me about later, but,
yes,
then, but, the whole, everything really stemmed off of, just loving to do things, acting and doing things with my voice. And so, I was doing improv comedy, here in Dallas at a place called Ad Libs, and then ended up doing my own group with a bunch of those guys called Fourth Wall. And anyway, so I was seen by the guy that got the account for Chuck E. Cheese when they rebranded, and essentially, long story short, became Chuck E. Cheese. And it was a little bit before that I had gotten a small part on Phineas and Ferb, and so that kind of was all of the stuff that started getting me, more and more commercials and things like that. I was super active in it for a while, but it's really gotten to be a really, really hard industry to be in. So I pretty much just stick to what I do. I do anything the Phineas and Ferb guys ask me to do. I do Chuck E. Cheese, and then I do a few toy commercials every fourth quarter, and that's kind of where I leave it, unless something just falls into my lap.
Okay, can you do one little voice for me?
Well, actually, this is a good thing. So Chucky, for example, when people ask so it goes both ways. So somebody will say okay, well, I heard that your husband does Chuck E. Cheese. Well, what does your husband sound like? And then it's this thing they're like, oh, so you do Chuck E. Cheese. What does Chucky sound like? So Chucky is just me, but excited. So my best friend Linus calls it my people voice. So it'd be like if I probably did it right whenever I saw you guys actually, but it's just me seeing somebody that I haven't seen in a while, and I go, hey. So it's basically that's where Chucky starts, but he would be more like have a Chucky day, or and he has this little laugh where he's like and so yeah, that's Chucky. And then quite frankly, Danny on Phineas and Ferb just sounds like me hungover. He's kind of just got this thing right here, and he's like, it's like, hey, get out of the store, boys. And so it's not a whole lot of me really doing anything.
Well, I think it's awesome, and I think me and all of my fellow radio broadcasters and people that have worked in broadcasting, it's kind of a cool thing to be able to talk to you and know the work that goes into it. But let's talk about your music. Of course, Bowling for Soup, very successful, Grammy nominated. How many? I mean, that's many years for you.
30. Next year, 2024 is our 30th year. And, we put out a record our first year, and I honestly, I think we're up to, if you count live albums and EPs. I think we're at like 22 albums or something insane. Sold millions of them, and we've toured the world several times, and just super blessed. I mean, as I said, I didn't really even, I mean, I was in college when we started this band, and I had already owned 3 of my own businesses. I was just really always a hustler. I never wanted to work for anybody else. And so growing up in Wichita Falls, and we started this band kind of like, again, after I'd owned 3 businesses, and after I'd gotten 2 degrees in college, and this thing started, and a few years after, I was just like, man, I just want to give this a shot. And being on stage with these guys basically gave me the ability to do all of those things I want to do anyway. Bowling for Soup is, there's a lot of comedy in our show. So I already get to do the stand-up comedy thing, and we get to do, the acting thing is that just the interaction with the guys and doing the ad lib and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, super blessed. Again, we started just for fun in 94, and 96, we decided to go for it. And, like so many people, we were overnight successes. we were in a van for 9 years until we got on a tour bus, and literally touring the country, just show to show, just trying to get money to put in the gas tank, and really, really worked hard at it. And so when we finally had a hit in 2003, 9 years in, it was at that point we could kind of start to say, okay, now we're going to do this for a living. But there we are, almost 10 years of doing it, and then we're deciding that that's going to be our job. So it was definitely it was definitely a grind.
Lots of grinding and lots of success. What some of your most memorable moments from Bowling for Soup?
Man, the great thing about the memorable moments for Bowling for Soup is that they keep coming. But obviously, as you mentioned earlier, going to the Grammys was really cool. And it's the people that you meet there that you don't expect to. It's like you're standing there. I was literally standing there talking to BB King with while shaking his hand. Bonnie Raitt kissed me on the face and told me how cute I was. And Michael J. Fox walked in, and that's when I got like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. Michael J. Fox is here. And so that was obviously, but then it's like just playing in the different countries and on various TV shows and things. It's like, I think it's probably, and then there's the ones too where it's like the first time your kid sees you play live, or so it's just, there's just such a, it's just been such an amazing road for us as far as just, and I think really, as I said earlier, because it was so much work to get here, we never really rocketed to the top. It was always a real steady climb, so we never really fell down either. And so I think with that has, the fact that we still sell out most of the shows that we play, and we're bigger in the UK than we've ever been, I think that's just a testament to just how loyal our fans are. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, but I would definitely say, playing Giant Stadium, the Grammys, playing the Rose Bowl, opening up for Ozzy. I tell you this, one time in a 2-week period, we opened up for, because of festivals, we opened up for Aerosmith, Kiss, and Ozzy all in the same week.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
All the way from Wichita Falls, Texas.
All the way from
getting your start right there. But that's what I love about Texas. And so here's the thing. So you still had that yearning, and kind of there was something always there kind of pulling at you for the country thing.
For sure. Yeah. As I said, Wichita Falls comes up a lot when I talk about this, because country is king there and still is. And, I grew up with parents that listened to music constantly in the car and in the house, and they sang all the time, the full on like Griswolds, in the Vacation movie. They, were those two parents, and it was Waylon and Willie, and it was Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, but it was Donna Summer and the Eagles and Neil Diamond did. So it was my music palette was really, really diverse before I found what it was that was going to get me into music, which would later be, heavy metal, and then punk, which is what would sort of be the catalyst for Bowling for Soup. But all of that was still there. I say in one of my songs that I've got Waylon and Willie tattooed on my arm, and I do. I've had a Waylon and Willie tattoo for 20 years, and long before I was able to finally do a country record, I would have sat and told you that Willie Nelson was my biggest inspiration as far as a songwriter is concerned. So, yeah, always been back there in the back of my mind as something that I wanted to do.
Well, we were excited when we got the first release. I saw it coming out to radio, was one of the good ones. And then currently Drunk as It Takes is out. And I understand you had written that many, many years ago in Nashville.
Yeah, I went to Nashville to dip my foot in the songwriter, the whole like songwriter game. And it's a little bit bittersweet. Everybody wanted to write with me, but everybody wanted to write a Bowling for Soup song. And I was like, I don't need help writing Bowling for Soup songs. Like, I want to, like, what, let's try and write, like, why don't y'all let me help y'all get out of your own box, and I just really wanted to just be in the room and just show what I got, show my bag of tricks. So I had a hard time. I got in the room with a few people and I was really turned off by the whole thing. But Zach Malloy, who produced my record and who co-wrote my record, was able to get me in the room with Rodney Clausen, who has tons of number ones, and we wrote Drunk as It Takes. And I left Nashville with that song 13 years ago, and nothing ever happened with it. So when I was putting together these songs for this record, I played it for my wife, who was quite a bit younger than me, insert rock star cliche here. And, I said, does this sound old? And she goes, no, it sounds like you singing country. And I was so glad that she said it to me, that way, because I was able to just put it on there and never look back. And it's been so well received, and so many people just, relate to it, because it's, one of those songs that, unfortunately, too many people, find themselves in a bad spot and turn to the bottle. And of course, that happens in a lot of country songs.
I noticed and the video was really good. You had some good people in the video.
You did. Yeah. Thomas Ian Nicholas, who the listener will know from American Pie. He's the guy that makes the deal. And he's also in the baseball movie that just left me, and I cannot think of it. Why am I not thinking of that? Rookie of the Year. He's the kid in Rookie of the Year. So he's a really good friend of mine, and we met doing one of my podcasts that I was doing at the time, and we became fast friends. And so it's actually my wife's idea again. Man, she's getting a lot of credit today. But when I was getting ready to do the video, she said, "Man, why don't you just ask Thomas if he'll do it?" And she and he was like, yeah. And so I flew him in literally with 24 hours notice, and the lovely Greta, who worked at Lava Cantina, which was so nice to let me film it there in the colony, and really just got the band in one finally too. So that was also another plus.
So I know that you have a lot of support from a lot of the Texas artists. I want to talk about you and Beer and Cody Canada and y'all's relationship.
Cody, to me, is not only on the Mount Rushmore of Texas country, but I think he's one of the best, sweetest people I've ever met, and most genuine people. And, I've known Cody since, he was in Ragweed, and Bowling for Soup and Cross and Ragweed would play together quite a bit at college shows and things like that. We tend to, kind of cross paths a lot, and he was always so gracious and nice. And then, over the last few years, we've done a few song swaps together. Even before I went country, people would ask me to do song swaps, and I think they really just wanted the comedy.
Yes.
I think they were just like, we need somebody that can come up here and be funny, and then we'll sing sad songs. But we met so many years ago, but we've stayed in touch. And then it's just been a really cool thing. His kids are big fans of Bowling for Soup, and it's awesome to see that his kids now getting into music and playing in bands and stuff. So when it came time to ask people to be on this record, I knew that instantly that I wanted Cody to be a part of it. And man, he said yes. I mean, before I don't even know that I was finished typing the text, and if that's possible. And he had already said yes, and sang that thing, and it came back, and it would just, I love hearing our voices together, and so it meant a lot to me, and he knows that.
Well, then you pull. Let's talk about now. I love way more country.
Yeah,
That
thank you.
that is awesome. You got Uncle Cracker helping you out on that one.
Yeah, and again, same thing. I've known Matt for so many years because of the same thing. It's like when he was doing the stuff with Kid Rock, we met several times, and of course, then he had the hit with Kenny Chesney. But when he came back to doing solo stuff, and he had that song "Smile," we found ourselves doing radio shows together quite a bit, and so our band got to be friends with his, and he and I got to be buddies. And Twitter had really just kind of started at the time, and so both of us were these old guys on Twitter, and we'd find ourselves tweeting each other back and forth, and just basically trying to figure out what was happening. And so again, another guy that was just so gracious and happy to do it. And he threw in some ad libs that I really didn't ask for, but I can't hear the song without them. It's like when I hear I pegged you for a champagne guy, and he goes, like, I'm like, what would that? I would miss that if it weren't there. So I have him to thank for that.
Well, talking about the album, since Drunk as It Takes was something you had written years ago, were there other songs on here that were like that, or did you just sit and go into a writing session? How did all of these songs come about that's on the album?
That's a great question, and it's unlike any way I've ever written before. As I said, Zach and I co-wrote the record. Besides, there's 2 Bowling for Soup remix on the record, one of which Zach actually had co-written as well too. But there's 2 Bowling for Soup remakes, and then there's another remake on there. The rest of the songs were all written during the pandemic over text message, and we were literally never in the room to write a song together. So it was like, send a audio recording this way, what about this, and then the other guy would send it back, and then it's lyrics, and then it's all this. And so what I started doing was I started taking all of those things, and I organized them all by song, and like in all these folders in Google Drive. And then that way, like when it came time to put the song together, you just go back and listen to all the audio recordings. It's like, okay, what about this for a verse, and this for a bridge, and this, and then here's the lyrics we have together, and you put them all in one document and punch them up. And that's literally how it was written. They went from that into acoustic demos into him in the studio with studio musicians, and the next thing I know, I'm singing the songs. And so definitely different than I've written before, and different than the way the songs are being written now for the next country stuff. I mean, it's more along the lines of how I write anyway, where I get the idea and the concept or whatever. But it was certainly a fun exercise, and something that kept, and it happened really fast too, because we were both just in the zone.
So I know that when you released your radio releases, you went on the big radio tour, and I could see everyone just embracing you. And I think you had such a good time on your radio tour.
I've been on, I guess I've been on 2 now, maybe 3, but I'm going on another one in a couple of weeks. I have so much fun. It's funny because and you're right, everybody has been so welcoming to me and so nice. And it's not like, so I was worried about a couple of things. I was worried, that, I'd be seen as kind of a novelty. And I also didn't want, the Texas country people to think that I was just, sort of trying to infiltrate, their genre of music, so to speak. I mean, I mean this from my heart, and I'm putting a lot into. I mean, I bought a van, guys. I mean, I think once we traded in my wife's car to buy a van, and
I love it.
And now she drives my SUV, and I drive a band van now as my main car. So I do mean it, but everybody was so great and welcoming, and it was like everybody asked just the right amount of Bowling for Soup and Phineas and Ferb and Chuck E. Cheese songs, and then is genuinely interested in the music that I'm making. And
oh yes,
and that's the part that feels really good, is that, and even you, like the fact that more songs than you're even I don't know about required, but like that you really would know to ask about, because they're not on the radio or whatever. And it just means a lot to me, that
Well,
people are
yes.
taking the time to listen.
And it's so important to listen to this whole album. There's just so many, and like you said, relatable songs. And I do know that I did get word that in April you're dropping a new radio single, Royal Family.
I am. And this song, a lot of it's funny. I wrote a Bowling for Soup record during the pandemic, and then I wrote this record, and there's a lot of reflection. There's a lot of like stepping outside of myself and observing those things around me. And Royal Family is a song about, I was unaware that I had 3 biological older sisters until just about 5 years ago. And this touches on that. It touches on the fact that, the people that I call my family are those that hold me close and that I hold close. So it might not be somebody that I'm actually related to. And it gets into that, but I talk about my kids and my mom and the man that raised me and my kids and my wife and my band and, all of that, because that Royal Family was in the news at the time because the prince was quitting the royal family. And so but all of that was happening, just while all this was super fresh in my life with just, and then the pandemic made us all sort of step back and go, okay, now I'm on this island and I don't necessarily have to let everybody back in my life. I can sort of,
right.
I can basically take any of that toxicity and just go like, you know what, we'll just leave it like this. And, and, I think a lot of people were able to do that and, come out of it with stronger friendships too, and that's what the song talks about.
Yeah, and as in all your songs, I mean, the writing is just so awesome. I love the reference to no castles or thrones, but a lifetime of memories. So I think a lot of people are going to really embrace that song like they have on the album. And you reference Miller Lite a lot.
Yeah, I do. So here's the story with me. I'm known as a big Miller Lite drinker, but I didn't drink. Like when I turned 21, I went to an El Chico's and had tea. I did
not the El Chico's.
Yeah, I didn't. So I didn't drink until like well into my 20s. And I for sure didn't like beer. I just didn't like it. And one day I'd had a really rough day and I was just like, okay, guys, I'm just going to have a beer. What kind of beer is good? And what my drummer at the time was like, Miller Lite's pretty good. And the bass player was like, yeah, I like Miller Lite. And Chris, who is still in Bowling for Soup, was like, I like Miller Lite. And so I was like, okay, guys, we drink Miller Lite now. That is a true story. And to this day, I don't drink beer. I drink Miller Lite.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Okay, I was wondering about that. So I know that you're doing some Texas shows, and I do know that, and of course, I got to hear all about it. But one of your first shows that you did with your band for Texas was at Green Hall with Brie Bagwell.
Man, just if you could have, put me into a situation, I don't think you could have put me into a better situation for my first show in Texas. I mean, first of all, I'm so very lucky. My first Texas shows were in London at C2C, in front of a festival crowd. And even the promoter was like, nobody's going to know who you are. And I went out there and everybody knew who I was. And because Bowling for Soup does really well over there. And so my second or my third show total is my first Texas show. And that's at Green Hall, opening up for Brie Bagwell for her CD release.
Yes.
And she could not have been more sweet. And her band and crew are just, and your producer, Kyle, is just the absolute best. And like you, and I was just like, if this is what this world is like, I love it. Maybe I can do without a dressing room, and people, bumping into me and my guitar on the way to the men's restroom while I wait to get on stage, because there's not a lot of accommodations there. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit spoiled, from being in Bowling for Soup, but I've certainly had to get used to not having those luxuries. No, I honestly had the best night, and we've played together several times since then and gotten to be really good friends and just think the world of her. And again, that was the kickstart to all of this and everybody I've met along the way. It's just been awesome.
Yeah. Well, everyone's loving you and loving the album. Just woke up, looking forward to what's going to happen with the new radio single and keeping up with your shows and anything in particular as far as your shows coming up that is something that you would want to talk about.
Well, I'm super excited, first of all, to be headlining Denton for the first time. Bowling for Soup left Wichita Falls in '96 and we've called Denton and Denton County home ever since. And so this will be my first Denton show. So I'm excited about that. I'm finally getting to play with Bart Crow, who I've been friends with since this was even an idea of mine. Just one of those things where I reached out and I was just like, dude, I love your stuff. And he was like, oh my God, I love your stuff. And so happy about that. And just getting the band out there and playing more and more shows. I mean, like anybody in country knows, we don't have the luxury of being able to just rehearse all the time like we did when we were kids. And so a lot of times the rehearsal is sound check, and then you're just getting up there and trying to figure it out. So, 8 or 10 shows in, we're really starting to ignite a little bit. And I think the show is evolving into something that people are, I don't think that we've done any bad shows, but it's definitely becoming something to where people will remember it forever. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there. And then so I'm doing another radio tour in West Texas. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I don't like to just go and do radio and then go to my hotel. So I schedule a show every night.
I saw that on your radio tour. Yes. I saw that.
So, there may be something wrong with me, and maybe this is the only time I do that. But my tour manager is very excited because it's not just me and him. We're taking a merch guy now, so at least he's got somebody to help with the driving. So, but I'm just excited to get out there and do this. I'm actually going back to Comanche so I'm excited to get back there and visit her. 'Cause she won I believe Radio Personality of the
Melissa.
Year. Yeah.
Yes, Melissa K. Fowler. Yes,
Miss Fowler. And so I'm excited about that. And so and this is a big thing for me because you have to understand, I was on that red carpet at the TCMAs, and you were my second interview like in that environment since I crossed this. Yeah. And so I've done a bunch of red carpets, but usually I have a bunch of guys dressed like me and I can just be funny. And there I am all just dressed up, and I had to like actually talk about music with you. And so I thank you. I was comforted by the fact that Jim Nash was in Wichita Falls for a very long time, and we had already connected over that. So him standing there with you made me a little bit less nervous.
He's amazing, and he won an award also. Him and Crowman won.
Love it. I love that show.
Yes. So we're going to have to wrap it up. I hate to, and normally I ask a question at the end of every podcast. If you were a cocktail, what would you be? And I think I know your answer. You're going to be Miller Lite.
Well, you know what? If I were a cocktail, I'd probably be a Miller Lite. If it weren't that, I would be a Long Island tea, because they're refreshing yet impactful.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And one of those two for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to catch up with you again, and good luck on the next single. We'll be following it. And thank you so much, Jaret Ray Reddick.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime.
She knew where I was from as she left. I dare to say, well, you can go to hell. Hell, I'll go to Texas. I've had my fill of every place but home. Well, take away